Good afternoon. Welcome to MSME Matters, a digital platform for Indian MSMEs to connect, collaborate, convert, and co-create. Our guest today is a very interesting person, Mr. R Narayan, CEO, Power2SMEs. I have known Narayan for a long time, and he has a very interesting profile. In fact, one of the most interesting profile I've seen in recent times. Narayan is a cost accountant by training, a sales and marketing professional by choice, and an entrepreneur by passion. He started his career working in sales and marketing in organizations like Microsoft, Oracle, and Tata. He then went on to co-found Dinev India Private Limited, India's largest technology-powered sales enabling services company, where he continues to be a board member today. He spearheaded Dinev's growth over the first 13 years as the CEO of Dinev and then founded Power2SME, the first buying club for the small and medium enterprises in India. Narayan has many feathers to show in his cap. Recently declared as an Entrepreneur of the Year, he is recognized as a thought leader across policymaking bodies, SMEs, and entrepreneurial platforms. Power2SME was also awarded the Forbes India Leadership Award for Outstanding Startup category in 2018 under Narayan's leadership. Narayan, welcome to MSME Matters and thank you for giving us your time.
Thank you for having us here, having me here, Subhashish.
Thank you, Narayan. Narayan, how did you conceive the idea of Power2SME and how's the journey been so far?
So, you mentioned in my profile that, I ran Delay for 13 years.
Hmm.
What I was doing for many of my clients is help managing their SME client portfolio, building it, etc.
Hmm.
And that is when I realized that, whatever the SME does, he will always lack the enterprise capability in terms of, economies of scale. So I'll
Correct.
give you an example.
Hmm.
Pick any large organization, a State
Hmm.
Bank or
Hmm.
ONGC or,
Hmm.
L&T.
Hmm.
If these guys go out and, ask for even 5 laptops, they are
Hmm.
categorized as enterprises. And the
Correct.
prices for them will start at, 25,000,
Right.
30,000 kind of stuff.
Correct.
You and
Right.
I can float a company as an
Hmm.
SME,
Hmm.
and we can go out and buy 50 laptops when we're
Hmm.
starting up. Even though you're buying 50 laptops, you're still a small enterprise, and your pricing
Correct.
itself starts from 40, 45,000
Hmm. Hmm.
rupees. So what I realized is that while we are tom-tomming a lot about, making MSMEs the backbone of India and
Hmm.
all of that,
Hmm.
these necessary changes are not made, are not facilitated.
Hmm.
The chances, it'll take a long time in coming. So
Yep.
that's why Power2SME sits like a enterprise between the SME and the manufacturer and
Hmm.
tries and aggregates for all MSMEs put together
Okay.
and
So the
buys.
okay. So that's what the buying club is.
Yes,
Very
yes,
interesting. Very interesting. Okay. See, you have also been working with MSMEs for a long time now, right?
correct.
So, what role do you think MSMEs play in revival of the Indian economy, especially with respect to Prime Minister Modi's AtmaNirbhar Bharat?
Um, okay, so there are 6 regulatory measures as a part of Atmanirbhar Bharat for the
Correct.
MSME sector, right?
Mm,
The first and
mm,
foremost, of course, is revising the definition of the MSME. This has taken a
mm,
long time in coming, and it's one of
mm.
the most welcome things that can happen.
Yeah.
The second thing that has happened is, the collateral-free automatic credit line that the government has passed. So
Mm,
what this meant is that as on 28th of February, 29th of February, whatever was the loan that you had with the bank
mm,
is asked to give you a 20% top up on it,
correct.
right? So that has worked very well, and I'm seeing
Mm,
most MSMEs, using that.
mm,
It replaces more costly credit for them,
mm,
and
mm,
this is a good time for them to give up costly credit because
mm.
none of them are operating at 100% capacity as of today. So the
Yeah.
need for credit that was there pre-COVID has
Mm,
uh, come down. So
mm,
replacing costly credit with slightly cheaper credit really helps these
mm,
people.
mm,
Right. The other thing is that
mm,
the government announced
mm,
the creation of fund of funds.
Hmm.
with a corpus of 10,000 crores.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
know you and I have spoken about this earlier, but
Yeah. Hmm.
this was in the making. It had not yet happened. What I
Hmm.
hear recently, right now, is that NSIC, National Small
Hmm.
Industries Corporation, has now
Hmm.
been made in charge of this 10,000 crores, and they will help in
Hmm.
disbursing this fund.
Hmm.
And they will focus a lot. NSIC anyway focuses heavily on the manufacturing segment.
Hmm.
So this would be a huge fillip for the manufacturing SMEs kind of stuff.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
the startups are not explicitly covered in the definition of MSMEs. However, startups
Hmm.
operating in manufacturing and ancillary services, especially
Hmm.
medical, robotics, may consider themselves registering as an MSME. And
Hmm.
a host of benefits such as priority sector lending, cluster
Hmm.
financing, exemptions, tax ops,
Hmm.
etc.,
Hmm.
will be available for these people.
Hmm.
And lastly, if you look at AtmaNirbhar Bharat, may be
Hmm.
construed as an import substitution. I mean,
Hmm.
especially with all these things that are
China.
people rising against the
Hmm.
Chinese thing
Hmm.
and all of
Hmm.
that. We've seen how we were not in the business of PPE kits at all. And today
Hmm.
we are Atmanirbhar in PPE kits and we are
Yeah.
giving out PPE kits to
Yeah.
across the world.
And we are the second largest manufacturers.
Correct.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, they will play a strong and important part in this
Hmm.
whole play.
Okay. See, I have also got a lot of MSME clients, and what I see is like PPE kit. One of the biggest advantage of PPE kits was there was very little capital investment required.
Right.
Okay. So one of the challenges that I see facing the MSMEs in India today is they are struggling for finance, adequate business finance, whether it is capital or working capital, right? Adequate and timely finance. Okay,
Right.
this is one of the issues that is really, really plaguing them, especially after lockdown. I mean, I have clients who were doing very well and they were looking at business expansion before COVID hit, right? Then came the COVID and the lockdown happened. And this 4 months of lockdown, right, there seems to have caused a devastation in them. You know, what happened was they had reserves.
Hmm.
Now, during the lockdown, there was moratorium of loans, etc., etc. But they were not really, they did not matter because they had reserves, so they were able to pay off their various loans. So
Hmm.
they continued to give loans, rental, salaries, etc. But after the unlockdown happened,
Hmm.
what has happened is moratorium was withdrawn, but the cash crisis stuck them there. Okay,
Correct.
and suddenly you find that they are unable to pay off their loans, GST timely they are not able to pay. As a result of which, what has happened is 3 or 4 months down the unlockdown period, most of these guys, their credit rating has also fallen.
Hmm.
You know, they have defaulted on their credit card payments, they have defaulted on their loans, right?
Hmm.
And now they are struggling where to raise money from. Okay. Now, this is one of the real challenges that they are facing. Do you think government has any policy to support such a situation?
See, there has been some talk. I mean, it's not yet happened to, restructure these loans to
Hmm,
so that we don't be, our defaulting laws, the civil affecting laws and all of
hmm,
those NPA laws, we're all
hmm,
for good times, right?
hmm,
And we really came from a bad place and we were going to a good place. But
hmm,
COVID is an emergency situation.
hmm,
So there is a lot of policy decisions and talks going on in terms of
hmm,
a restructuring the loan and b
hmm,
how to look at the effect of on the credit score basis
hmm,
these loans.
hmm,
A lot of private companies have already
hmm,
they are looking at March 31st balance sheet of 2020 and
hmm,
then looking at September 2020 again and
hmm,
seeing the change in ability
hmm.
and re-rating their customers kind of stuff. So this has not
Okay.
yet become a dictum, but
Hmm.
then I think there will be changes because it will be very crippling if that doesn't happen.
Yeah, otherwise, also another thing that is happening is, people are able, if they am able to raise some money in terms of getting some payment from my customer or anyone. Now, what is happening is MSMEs will then, they have started receiving letters and notices from GST saying everyday penalty is this, etc. So they panic and then they use up that finance to pay the GST or TDS, whatever, right? Now the situation is very interesting. You know, they don't have cash flow to run the business. Now it is a choice between devil and deep sea. Do I run business and risk the wrath of statutory bodies? Or do I clear my GST dues and TDS dues, etc., and then stop the business?
See, that's not a very fair statement to make. If you look
Mhm.
at it, GST payments
Mhm.
were due on a certain date, and if not done by that date, there was default notices, etc. The government has gone and announced a waiver in terms of
Mhm.
GST payments, saying that you can. Uh, I don't know the exact thing they've passed, but they have given a lot of waiver on the GST in the sense that you
They
don't.
have?
Yes, they have.
Okay.
Like, for example, earlier when we were credit
Mhm.
checking our customers, by the
Mhm.
20th of the next month, we would typically see that they have submitted the GST forms, right, after paying the GST. But today, the government has given a waiver, therefore, we get a notification to the MSME saying that the government has given us this waiver, so we're taking advantage. And it's same like moratorium. They have given.
Okay. Okay. Okay, this is very interesting. In fact, as I was going through, I've been also researching a lot of government policies for MSMEs, etc. I also saw some very interesting policies like bill discounting, the credit, what is it?
Threads.
Threads. Threads. So similar policies, but I don't think a lot of MSMEs are aware of these policies, nor do they get any support from the bureaucracy when they start looking out for loans, etc. Okay, so the communication, I think somewhere the communication probably is not up to the mark.
So again, if I may differ a little bit from you, right here,
Hmm.
the Threads is an excellent platform set up by the government.
Correct, correct.
uh, it was not working
Hmm.
because you would rather default to the MSMEs and not get your credit rating hurt rather than defaulting with a bank that bought your bill on the Threads platform,
Hmm.
right? So earlier the large companies were not registering there. I mean,
Hmm.
this government came and said that it is now mandatory for
Hmm.
companies over 500 crores to register there,
Hmm.
right? Now, if you look at what is happening actually practically on the field, the
Hmm.
large companies are going and registering there, and then many of them are talking to their MSME suppliers, saying that
Hmm.
I will continue my work with you as long as you don't discount my bills on the platform.
Hmm.
So it's an implementation issue. So
Hmm.
first it was free for all. Then the
Hmm.
government made it mandatory for 500 crore plus companies to come there. But
Hmm.
then they didn't make it mandatory for
Hmm.
all invoices to be posted there. Like, I'll give you a simple example, and this is something that we've suggested also. Is, let's say I pluck out all the bills from GST and post them on Threads,
Hmm.
automatically populating them.
Hmm.
Then the choice is not of the MSME that the invoice goes there. So the client
Hmm.
doesn't have a say to the MSME
Hmm.
that you will not post my invoices. It'll go
Hmm.
automatically.
Hmm.
So there will be much more discipline in repayments in that case.
Hmm.
So we
Hmm.
need to tighten these screws. And,
Hmm.
we have been talking to the government, we
Hmm.
have been talking to the World Bank, etc., to see how
Hmm.
these things can be implemented. And it'll come. It'll come surely now.
In fact, something very interesting which we faced, my organization faced, is we provided service to some big companies, right? So they said that, yeah, you can continue to do business, but you will raise bill only when we tell you to raise the bill. Okay, so 2 months ago they took service. Now they're saying is okay, you can raise the bill on 1st of January.
Hmm.
Okay, so these are also very pandemic within pandemic is happening.
The problem is it'll be called very autocratic. But
Hmm.
for example, to solve this problem,
Hmm.
if the government comes forward and says, I don't care when you raise your bill,
Hmm.
but basis your expectancy of billing, please raise
Hmm.
your monthly GST, pay your monthly GSTs.
Hmm.
If you do something like that, then forcefully the invoice will get made in time. But
Hmm.
we, as a Indian community, we are a Jogad community, so we will always find ways to beat,
Hmm.
whatever the government proposes or whatever the RBI proposes, kind of stuff, which is okay.
Hmm.
You're being innovative, and that's also
Hmm.
one form of innovation. And the
Hmm.
government also has to keep pace in keeping this on track to make sure
Hmm.
that we are
Hmm.
going along.
Hmm. Correct. Correct. Acha, tell me one thing. In your experience in working with MSMEs, do you think MSMEs also have a mindset problem which is escalating the pandemic impact on them?
We must understand MSMEs first. Okay.
Hmm.
Uh, the thing is that, when we talk about MSMEs,
Hmm.
we think about typically startups which have started growing. Maybe startups maybe that started 10 years back, 20 years back, kind of stuff. If you segregate MSMEs, there are some MSMEs who are very progressive and they want to grow, etc. But a bulk of MSMEs land up as an MSME because they don't land jobs or they're not capable and therefore they start their own enterprise. And vision statement of this enterprise in the MSME's mind, the owner's mind, is food on the table. Is not, progress and growth and larger balance sheets and all of that kind of stuff. They come from a position of weakness and somehow they've managed to put. So that is one factor that we really need to keep in mind is that many of these MSMEs are not the path chosen by them, but the past thrust onto them kind of stuff.
Correct.
Right.
And I also notice, sorry, continue.
Please. No, you tell me.
No, I also noticed that they compromise on the quality of manpower that they recruit.
The end of the day, the difference between the cost of production and what they sell at is all that brings food to the table. So while the customer sees a competitive landscape, it does not allow the market operating price to change, keeps pushing it down. Every time there's a push from that side, the only way is to cut down your cost of operation. And how do you do that? I mean, steel prices are going up, but the cost of labor can be brought down, right? So whatever they can manage, they will manage. So,
Correct. Correct.
the other thing also, is, typically, like I said, food on the table is something they don't want to risk. Once that is there, they want to keep that happening. So a lot of caution there, right? The second thing is playing many roles. At the end of the day, you are a human being. You can't be the CFO, CIO, CXO, CEO, and the janitor, right? And everything takes a part of your time. So playing many roles. And I'm seeing that playing the many roles actually kind of shapes up better when the second generation joins. The lack of finance is the other thing that really, even for the ambitious and the progressive ones, at the end of the day, I mean, if you look at the world as a background, there are countries with minus 2% interest. And there are countries like ours, which, if you look at the real lending to the MSMEs, the lending is happening between 20 and 36%.
Yeah, 20 to 30% is easily the lending rate.
Correct.
So
and
the cost of finance is killing.
-2. Yeah. So how do you compete on a global basis? And then we crib about that we are not good at exports. We can't be good at exports when other exporters are availing funds at 1%, 2%, and you're availing funds at 24 to 36%. And your typical export payment cycles are itself 3 to 6 months. Big cost.
Correct. Right. Now, see, you have had a long experience working with MSMEs. What would be your recommendation for MSMEs in today's scenario to deal with these challenges? Finance, challenge of manpower, challenge of technology, and accessibility to market.
One of the first things that we need to do is bring MSMEs lending under the priority sector lending, right? That will substantially boost finances in the MSME sector as well as bring down the lending rates because of whatever at the back end people get. The problem is, I think today what they have said is that any loan up to 20 lakhs to an MSME is considered to be priority sector. That needs to go. And we need to make this amount much, much larger or not even put the amount. If he's qualified as an MSME, whatever he needs to run his business and make it bigger, we should put that under priority sector, right? The thing is that this pool is a large pool, the MSME pool, and there are many problems. So we need a very concerted and focused attention to give this sector the fillip it requires. Like, even in your question, you mentioned 2 or 3 challenges to name a few, right? Finance needs to be focused on, and we need to ensure that the banks are aligned with the new policy announcement and they're willing to lend, right? So I'll give you an example. Every bank has taken it as written in stone that 20% of February 29th outstanding is what they will give as a top up. The need to evaluate that company and be flexible with the 20%. The government has recommended 20%. The banks are very fast in making that 10 and 5, but not necessarily equally fast in making that 40 and 50.
25, 30, yeah.
Yeah, so that doesn't happen. So
Mm,
R&D also, needs we need to focus, especially if we're going to be we want to become self-reliant. You know,
mm,
we have to have community centers where R&D is common facility for many people, right? And typically, in a cluster-based approach, when there is a large customer, he buys from the entire cluster. So
mm,
the entire cluster being R&D enabled is something that
mm,
will make the cluster do good. It's not about one SME
mm,
kind of
mm,
stuff. We
mm,
have to develop that kind of an enabling ecosystem that results,
mm.
in the.
Correct.
I mean, I remember, my mother-in-law was the joint secretary in the environment division.
Mm,
They went and picked up clusters and made waste disposable common to all the people in that cluster.
mm,
Immediately, all the MSMEs there adopted to it because it was something that is available. Now,
mm.
if you expect each one of these MSMEs to set up a waste disposal system, it is just not
Yeah.
economically financially viable, right?
Mm,
We have to
mm,
develop that
mm,
ecosystem. And so at FICCI, we are doing a lot to
mm,
say FICCI CSME,
mm,
CMSME. We're doing a
mm,
lot, and we're constantly talking to the government to put, portray what pitfalls are there and what we have to do. But it's a long way. But the good thing is when I started Power2SME, the
mm,
SME sector the MSME sector was contributing anything between 16 and 19% of the GDP of India. If I look at
mm,
various reports, right?
mm.
Today, that number is hovering around 29.
Correct.
We have done some right things,
Yeah.
right? But
Mm,
the other benchmark that we need to have here is that if you look at any developed nation, not developing nation,
mm.
their SME contribution to the GDP is anything between 60 and 75%. So
Yeah.
that from 30, we need to travel there. So we
Correct.
need to enable the system much more. And I'm
Yeah.
sure we'll do that.
Yeah. Another problem is even that 29% contribution to GDP is primarily coming from MSME service.
Yes.
MSME manufacturing was virtually finished between 2010 to 2014. MSME manufacturing company, even you want to buy diyas, it will come from China. You want to buy toothpaste, it is coming from China. You want to buy shoelaces, it's coming from China.
So, like you said, I quit Microsoft and set up Denave. At that
Mm,
point of time, as an entrepreneur, I had two things to choose,
mm,
and that's the same status that India had. Do we ride the services bandwagon or we ride the manufacturing bandwagon?
manufacturing.
We rode the services bandwagon and we did pretty well. We can't complain about that. We
Mm,
produced some great companies and
mm,
the whole world looks at us as their back office
mm,
kind of stuff. So we've
mm,
done a good job.
mm,
Now, and it took its own time. It took 20, 30
mm,
years to India to get to where its services level is.
mm,
Now,
mm,
if you look at it, the bureaucracy, the government, everybody is tom-tomming manufacturing.
mm.
And once that we've started tom-tomming manufacturing, for all of this to land in the ground and become progressive and make a significant impact, takes 2, 3 decades.
Correct.
But the lingo has changed and manufacturing is
Mm,
focused, MSME is focused.
mm,
I'm
mm,
saying this is the lingo I'm hearing for the last 6, 7 years. I'm now
mm,
starting to see today you can stand up and give an example saying that we were zero in PPE kits and now we are self-sufficient and exporting
mm,
PPE kits, right?
mm.
We can start picking those examples and I'm
Yeah.
sure this will develop fast as a nation because
Great.
yeah.
Mm, great. One last question. I was going through your profile. I also saw you were connected with some venture funds.
Oh yeah. So I
Right.
mean that's more a personal passion than a profession. So
Mm,
what I do is I'm in with the venture funds that you're talking about. I act in
mm,
advising capacity. I act as
mm,
their India, beachhead.
mm.
In the same breath, I'm making some investments on my own also at
Okay.
business plans that I like and love.
Okay.
So it's just a personal passion, nothing to do
Okay.
with my.
So the question I had was, we find that venture funds are also preferring tech-based services rather than manufacturing, funding manufacturing. So if there is an MSME manufacturing, right, what does he have to do to ensure that venture funds get interested in him? Is there something they can do?
See, in the tech space, we have grown really fast from proof of concept to a large customer base
Correct,
kind of.
correct, correct.
Uh, it is completely incorrect to say that there are no venture funds in the manufacturing
Hmm,
space. If
hmm,
you look at companies like Kajaria and other people
hmm,
who have really gone to scale, etc., there's been a lot of funds that have flowed into those kind of companies. So, as a manufacturing company, you need to think of scale a little faster. You can't say that, I will set up my factory will take 2 years to commission, and then I'll start production, and then my production to reach 50% capacity will take 5 years. Nobody has that kind of appetite. For that appetite, you need the government fund, right? And hopefully NSIC will play a big role out there, kind of.
Correct.
So, as entrepreneurs, we just have to, even if in the manufacturing space, we can't say that it's 30 years to success. It has to still be 3-4 years to success, and then you'll see funds pouring into this space. And in the other space, you're taking a bet on the future without actually. In a manufacturing space, you see the factory, you see the customers, you see the goods. So people will love investing in that space. But scale to build to scale has to be faster.
Correct. So great. Narayan, thank you very much for your time and very valuable inputs. Thank you very much, Narayan. Thanks for your. Bye.